It sounds to me like you had been a kid, probably much like me, very much on a straight and narrow for a certain point, and then just said "fuck this" and moved off. So, wondering, when did psychedelics enter your frame, even if not to the point of being so pivotal as that experience?
So for since at least college, have been interested from a research context about psychedelics. I was in my undergraduate years in 22 to 26, 2006, and I was in the history and philosophy library. And one of the benefits of being in the history, like working in these libraries, which was like, I'm kind of a nerd, a library nerd, is you can check books out for like months at a time and nobody can tell you not to turn them in because you work there and you can just keep checking them out. So I literally found the whole section on psychedelics. It was like this long. It was like this many books. It was like probably 20 books or something. And I checked all of them out and I took them all to my room and I started reading them one by one. And I was like, oh my God, these have had a massive influence on our evolution. Why are they so demonized? Why are they so taboo? Why do people make them such crazy things? Like, it's so obvious to me that these are like a really important part of human history. And I was really obsessed with learning about them. And I actually tell everybody the same thing. Like, don't take psychedelics until you educated yourself on psychedelics, because you're really playing with powerful, powerful medicine. And I really am I'm very pro psychedelic, but I'm also like just as much of a massive critic of the space of psychedelics, because I think it's just fundamentally important for people to have education before they get into them. So I was like very afraid of the concept of letting go. And I was just like, I don't know if I can ever do these things, but I'm like intrigued by them. And in between college and medical school, I had a job. And my parents were not pleased when I told them that I was going to spend my summer registering voters at music festivals for this company called Headcount. So I was like, look, I'm getting free tickets the entire summer and they're paying all of my gas to go to all of these amazing festivals and I'm getting backstage passes. Like, Mom, this is awesome. And so interestingly, they let me do it. And they're like, well, aren't you going to go to medical school? When are you going to get your stuff? Like, I'm like, look, I'm going to take a year off. I'm going to work in a hospital. I'm going to definitely determine whether I want to do this or not. So I went to this music festival. And I wasn't actually working at that music festival, but I'd been to this. I got invited by this guy that I was friends with to go, and my sister invited me to go to this tiny little music festival in Indiana. And I did mushrooms for the first time. And I remember doing quite a lot. I don't think I've ever done this much again, because I can't remember the last time I got that high on mushrooms. It was literally it was like my early 20s. And I think I got the message when I did it at that time. I was like, it was the most profound experience. I was speechless the entire time. I was laying under a tree and I was just like, I saw the most vivid visions I've ever seen. And I was completely floored and just overall blown away by the whole experience. And then the next day I remember driving home being like, it was so ineffable that I was in this state of, whoa, what was that? What was that? And I didn't actually touch psychedelics for a long time because I went to medical school. And in medical school, one of my friends was driving through the country. I'd actually met him at Bonnaroo. We were registering voters together. His name was Bear Cadet. And Bear, you might know him actually. He invited me to go to Burning Man. And I'm like, look, I'm in my fourth year of medical school. And I'm about to head into my fourth year. I'm about to take my board exam. Maybe I could go after take my test, but like if I do this, I can't ever go back because I have to go back into the real world. Like I can't just go to Burning Man every year. Like this will just be a one-time thing. And so I finished my board exam, fly to Reno, drive into Black Rock City, and basically got exposed to. I actually didn't do any psychedelics the first year of Burning Man, but I was like surrounded by them. So there's quite a lot of just like a feeling of, oh my God, like everyone's on psychedelics here. And I was very skeptical. I was very, very hands-off, very conservative. I was like, I'm not doing any psychedelics. I'm not doing any funny business. Like I'm here just to experience Burning Man and see the art. And I remember leaving Burning Man being like, oh my God, I cannot believe this changed my life. And I made an entirely new community of friends. And when I was traveling around the country, interviewing at medical schools and residencies, all of my Burning Man friends opened up their homes to me in the Bay Area. And actually, that was the reason why I decided to do my residency in the Bay, because I really wanted to be near people who are my friends. And I wanted a community. And Burning Man really taught me that. And then once you get to the Bay Area, you realize, like, I moved to Oakland, and Oakland is just like, at the time, going through the marijuana revolution. And this was like 2011, 12. And so I'm like, holy crap, there are dispensaries for medicinal marijuana. There are people taking classes on how to grow marijuana. There are underground marijuana clubs. Like, Oakland is like an epicenter of a shift happening, and this would never happen in Illinois. And it was a culture shock. And then, like, instead of drinking, a lot of my friends would use psychedelics. And so I was more and more exposed to psychedelics through the Burning Man community, through the San Francisco community, because San Francisco has always been sort of a progressive landmark of our culture. And sort of that's what, it's funny because, like, I remember early on meeting all these friends of mine being like, someday I think psychedelics are going to be medicine. And people were like, you're crazy. Like, this is ridiculous. And literally within a few years, there was this psychedelic revolution happening. Marijuana started to become more and more legal. And then I got people kind of started associating me with like the tech scene and working with doctors and being an innovator. And so I would regularly interview with the press because I was kind of always on the cutting edge of what was cool and new. And I was actually talking to some of my friends who are founders, and they were like, yeah, I just had the best meeting with this investor and I was microdosing. And I'm like, wait, what? What's going on? He's like, yeah, I microdose before I go to meetings. And I just like, I'm so in flow. And so, funnily enough, there starts to be this sort of underground discussion of, oh my God, people are using microdosing to magnify their performance. And I was known as a doctor to amplify performance and improve, how people master their health during high stress situations. And so I, for some reason, got introduced to the Financial Times, and they interviewed me and put my face in this article about how Silicon Valley had rediscovered LSD through microdosing for performance enhancement. And I think 2017 was like a definite turning point where things were starting to really take off. But then it was the pandemic that really shot everything up. And in 2020, I'd say, I started the Psychedelic News Hour. And I basically started talking about psychedelics on the public forum of Clubhouse, because that was where everybody was located during, quarantines. And, Field Trip shows up, and Compass Pathways and Maps is starting to get a lot of traction. And before you know it, there's like a few hundred companies that have started. And it was 2021 when I started my company, which we can talk about. But that's really my journey. And it's a long answer, but I guess it's been a progressive evolution towards building out a psychedelic protocol in my practice. I did a small amount of ketamine assisted therapy for quite a good number of clients during the pandemic who were suffering from PTSD and depression, and just, lots and lots of people were struggling with, major anxiety. And I found that sublingual ketamine in the protocol I designed, that's like very long and intensive, like 38 pages. That's when I started realizing, oh my gosh, there's really an opportunity here to help people. So I could literally talk for days, but hopefully that answers your question.